Hi, I'm Ryan Guina, the founder of the Military Wallet. I'm joined today by Jared Reichel, who is the Director of Agent Relations for a company that specializes in helping the military community buy homes. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, all right. So let's talk a little bit about real estate agents. You've been in this market for 14 years. Now, as I'm buying a house, I want to use the VA loan. What does a real estate agent do for me?
Yeah, definitely. So there's thousands of agents across the nation that specialize in helping veterans get into homes, that specialize in the VA loan. The VA loan process is obviously a little bit different than any other loan product, right? And so in order to truly represent the veteran the way they need to be veteran, you need to understand the nuances of the VA loan product, especially from the agent side, right? Because there's additional documentation, addendums that have to happen, and of course the scary appraisal and inspection processes, right, are just a little bit different than that of an FHA conventional or USDA loan.
Okay, so if I'm buying a house, probably I don't want to just call the first real estate agent that I find, right? So
Yeah.
maybe I want to ask if they have experience working with veterans or with VA loans. What are some of the questions, or how can I vet that to make sure that they're not just saying, oh yeah, I can do it, but they really know what they're doing and they can really help you through that process, as opposed to maybe, well, you're my first one, but I'm going to fake it till I make it, right?
Yeah. So obviously there's tons of rules and regulations that agents have to follow. But one of the most important ones is the fiduciary responsibility to the buyer, right? Or the seller. By not using the seller's agent and going out and getting your own agent, your agent now has a fiduciary responsibility for you. If you were to use the seller's agent actually has a fiduciary responsibility to the seller first. And so really you got to think, is this person representing my best interest?
Yeah.
If they're also representing the other party, right? And so understanding how an agent can help you or what they're supposed to be doing, such as obviously finding properties that fit your mold and what you're looking for your family or yourself, and definitely understanding the market that it's in and how that listing price may be affected by the climate of the market in that area at the time. But most importantly, an agent is going to help you to understand an industry that you have no knowledge in, more than likely, right? When I came out of the military, I didn't know anything about real estate. And when I bought my first home, if not for my agent, we probably wouldn't have made it happen, honestly.
Yeah, and you're right. I did the same thing. The first time my wife and I bought a house together, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we did work with a real estate agent who knew VA loans. That was very helpful for us. We knew we wanted to use the VA loan, even though we had a little money to put down, like a down payment. We
Sure.
knew you could do it with no down payment. But there are other benefits to using it, especially when you get into refinancing and things like that. And our real estate agent was really instrumental in helping us know how to navigate that process, and she made it a lot easier. We also worked with a lender that had a lot of experience with the VA loan process, which made that process easier too. So let's say we're moving to a new area. You know, military members, you move a lot, or in our case, we had just relocated to a new state. We knew a little bit about the area, but not a lot. How do we find a real estate agent in a new area when you're brand new, you don't know what you don't know the different neighborhoods, and you might not know who the real estate agents are? So how do we kind of vet them and find somebody in a new area?
Yeah. I tell my friends all the time, I retired from the military as well. So I've got buddies all across the country that hit me up for whatever real estate question they may have. But I liken it to buying a new car, right? You may have a great idea of what kind of vehicle you're looking for, but you're not just going to go in and jump in the first one and be like, well, this is the one, right? You want to test drive a couple and get a feel for the one that you're actually looking for. And I think that's important, and it translates really well to the real estate world, right? Like, you want to make sure that agent is a good fit personality-wise. They have a true understanding of what it is that you're looking for in a home, but also in a neighborhood and in an area, right? If you have young kids, you want to make sure that agent is familiar with the school districts in the town that you're about to move to. If you're on the retired side and you want to make sure you're in a gated community, you want to make sure that agent is familiar with the gated communities in the area, right? So just all of those nuances of understanding the market itself, that's what's so important about a real estate agent, especially when you're moving in from nowhere. So when I'm looking for an agent, I'm looking, how long have they been doing this? How long have they been doing this here in Columbia, Missouri, or wherever I'm looking to buy a home, right?
Yeah.
Do they specialize in military? Do they specialize in working with veterans and active duty service members? Um, Man, there's so many nuances to it, right? That I think
Yeah,
I
it
could
sounds.
probably go on all day
Yeah,
with that. Yeah,
it sounds like there are. But so you're saying try it on before you buy it,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
just like your test driving a car. So it sounds like you might want to put together a few interview questions or things that might be important to you when you're buying a house. You want to have that idea of what I'm looking for, and perhaps run that by the real estate agent and say, you know what, we're looking for this, this, and this. I think I haven't bought many homes, but I think a good real estate agent is going to listen to you and probably come back with questions of their own. Have you thought of this? Well, are you looking at this? Are you going to expand your family soon? Have more children? Are children going to be moving out, graduating from high school or college? So they're going to be looking at those questions. Now, let's say I start working with a real estate agent. Seems good at first. Maybe they become unresponsive or you just decide the fit's not right. Can you move on, or are you signing contracts? Are you locked in? How do these things work, and how can we help people be prepared so they don't maybe get in a situation where they feel like they're trapped?
yeah. So there were so many regulation changes last year in our industry, right? And there was a huge lawsuit that got pushed through at the federal level that really changed the game for real estate agents and their interactions with clients. So now, yes, you can definitely shop, but you have things like procuring cause. And if an agent shows you a home, they're now your agent for that home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with those changes last year, it goes one step further. And if an agent is going to show you a home, they're going to ask you to sign an agency agreement with them. That's a contract, and you're locked in on that, right? And so make sure that you understand that you have the negotiating power with your agent as well, right? Not only do you not want to be paying them 5% of the home value, you have the ability to negotiate their commission, right? But also, you want to make sure that that agent is a good fit for you. And so read the fine print. And if there's a home that you want to see and there's a specific agent that's going to show you that home, ask for a 1-day agency agreement, right? But let's say I find that agent that I just click with, and I'm like, this is the agent that I'm going to use to find a home. Then you can look at signing a longer agreement at 90 days or 6 months or however long it may take you to find a home. So just understanding that you're not necessarily tied to an agent unless you sign that agency agreement. And at that point, you're tied to that agent for as long as you agreed to in that agreement.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like that's a big change. When I went through when I went through the home buying process the first time, we actually did sign with an agent, and she took us around and she showed us a lot of different places, and she was very helpful, and thankfully it worked out well. We were comfortable with her, super knowledgeable of the local area, and she was a great resource. But I could see how if we weren't comfortable or things didn't work out, how that might have been a little challenging there.
Yeah, and nobody wants that grimy feel, right? When you first move to a new area, the last thing you want to do is go to the grocery store and see this agent that you fired, right? So just being upfront, and I think setting out what your expectations are, what your wants and what your needs are is super important, and making sure that the agent understands those wants and needs, but also is kind of on team you, right? Like if they're not your biggest cheerleader, should you really be working with them? Right.
No, that's a great question. So you talk a little bit about how this recent lawsuit changed a little bit about how real estate agents work with the buyers and the sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a few years back, it was standard 5-6% commission, and usually you'd have a buyer's agent, seller's agent, and they would split fees, or that was built into contracts different ways. How are we compensating an agent now? So if I want to buy a new home and I'm going to hire an agent to show me around, do I pay them directly? Is that coming out of the seller's commission when they sell the house? How does that work? And what should we be looking for to protect ourselves to make sure we're not spending too much?
Yeah. So actually, all of those things are negotiable, right? In the past, prior to that settlement last year, a veteran or service member that was using the VA loan was not allowed to pay any agent fees whatsoever. They were called VA non-allowables. Well, when the industry changed last year, it now opened it up where veterans are now allowed to pay the real estate agent. And I can understand where some people think, well, maybe I'm kind of getting, I don't know, rolled over here because now I have to pay my real estate agent. Well, that's not the case whatsoever. What we learned, if anything, from the market fluctuations during COVID is that veterans may not have had the purchase power that a conventional loan would have, simply because the agent had to be paid by the seller and out of that commission as well, right? Well, now the buyer has the right to pay their own agent. You really wanted to, you could pay the seller's agent. I wouldn't recommend that, but all of those fees are negotiable, right? And the seller side is usually a little bit higher. Agents on the buyer side, 2 to 3% commission, I think is pretty fair. Some markets is going to be that number is going to be a little bit higher, right? But the biggest thing, and especially for these second time VA home buyers, the first time you probably did not pay your real estate agent. That came out of the seller's fees. Now you do have the ability to negotiate and pay your agent's fees to make yourself more competitive in a seller's market.
Okay, well, that's great to know. So we've talked a little bit about how to find a real estate agent. Now let's talk a little bit about what they do for us, right? So I know they can show you around the local area. I know they can help you identify a house, or they have access to the MLS, and they can, show you maybe a little more than you can find on your own by using a web search. But how are they going to help me get through the home buying process? Do they talk to the seller? Do they help us negotiate? What else are they doing for us, and why do we really need an agent?
Yeah, so negotiation is a huge part of it also. But just like in any industry, there are laws, there are regulations that have to be followed. Agents know those laws and those regulations for their state, for their area. So that's an important piece. But not only is the agent going to get you into homes to view these properties, but they're also kind of protecting you from a financial perspective, in the sense that if you walk into an open house, you fall in love with that house and the seller's agent is the one that is there. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The seller's agent has a fiduciary responsibility to the seller first, where if you have a buyer's agent, they have a fiduciary responsibility to you. They have to work at your best interest all the time, right? So yes, they're going to get you in there. They're going to show you homes. They can help you to find a recommended home inspector in the area that would be certified. They're going to help you to understand everything from where the local grocery store is to what cable companies and trash companies you could be using. Not only that, they're going to negotiate on your behalf with that seller's agent, which is huge, right? Because if you don't know what you're talking about and you go in and you start trying to haggle right back and forth with an industry expert, you're probably going to get chewed up and spit out, right? So that buyer's agent is like having
they're your boots on the ground experts.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So anytime you go on a TDY or a mission, you want to have that expert who's been there and they know what they're doing, and they're going to help guide you through that process.
100%.
Sounds like
way to put
they're our
it.
senior enlisted advisor, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're working with a real estate agent. Now let's talk a little bit about using the VA loan and how it's a little bit different depending on markets. So we talked about COVID, for example. Now post-COVID, the markets were just hot. They were on fire. And sometimes using a VA loan can be a little slower than a conventional loan, depending on the timing and the process. And sometimes sellers don't know or understand the VA loan, and they're like, I don't want to deal with that. I've heard a lot of stories about that. How can a real estate agent help us with that? And are there things or tricks, not tricks, but are there methods they use that might help us use that VA loan in a hot market or other times?
Yeah, that's a crazy comment in my mind, that sellers are afraid of accepting a VA loan, right? And the reason I say that, and being a homeowner myself, and you probably experienced this selling a home, as long as the money is there, does it matter what type of loan your buyer is using, right? And
yeah, not to me. I would think they'd want to take it, but it could just be a misperception on the part of the seller. So maybe that's where the real estate agent can talk to the seller's agent and talk through that process. So again, that comes back to finding that expert.
Yeah, finding that real estate agent that understands the VA loan, those nuances, that then can go and negotiate for you with a seller's agent that maybe has never worked with a veteran or VA loan process before, right? And so it's man, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to just have an agent that is knowledgeable in your loan product that can break down those myths and those barriers that may set in the seller's head, right? People say that the VA home loan appraisal process is so much tougher than that of an FHA, USDA, or conventional, and that's not the case either, right? We're talking about the 3 S's: safe, sound, sanitary. As long as the home isn't leaning to the right, there's not wires hanging out of the wall, or it's not setting on top of a sinkhole, more than likely that home is going to pass VA appraisal, right? So that's one of the big pieces that sellers get afraid of is man, is the VA appraiser going to come in here and pick this thing apart? No, really, you should be more concerned about a home inspector coming in and picking your home apart with a conventional or FHA loan than you would with the VA appraiser coming in and giving a value to what the property is, right? And of course, making sure the home is safe.
Yeah, now you did mention the home inspection, and that's, again, having that expert on the ground who can recommend some other experts to you. So, for example, when we moved into a new state, we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't have a network like our real estate agent has, so she guided us to a home inspector who did find some issues with the house. Nothing major, but a few things. Hey, this is out of code. You're going to want to have the seller change this or fix this before you go through that process, because that could be expensive. So that was one of the experts she recommended. She also recommended a real estate lawyer who sat with us in on our closing process and found something that was written in the contract. The seller had written it in there, and it was about a $1,500 difference that went in our favor, more than paid for the cost of the lawyer. So having these experts come in and doing these little due diligence things are super important on what's probably going to be the biggest purchase of your life. But having that real estate agent can help introduce you to their network, and they can really help save you a lot of money in the long run. Now let's change gears a little bit. We're talking a little bit about, let's say we found our house, we found our real estate agent, they've helped us find a house. Now we're talking to the seller, and we want to start talking about, let's start talking numbers and price. And how can a real estate agent help you with negotiations, maybe seller concessions? Can we talk a little bit about what that looks like and how a real estate agent can help you with these things?
Yeah, so every scenario and situation is going to be different, right? And really is going to be how much is the seller side willing to negotiate? But a good agent, someone that's been in the industry for some time and has some transactions under their belt, they're going to understand how to go and talk to that seller's agent. They're going to understand how to best pitch your needs in the sense of, this is the home I want. This is how much we know we can put down on the home. And this is how much we know we need from the seller, right? So having an agent that is well-versed in the negotiations of seller concessions is so important, right? And I don't know that I can give you a specific point as to this is what you need to look for in your agent to know if they're a good negotiator, right? Because I think that's a gut feeling thing more than anything.
That makes sense. And that doesn't come until the end of the process anyway. And negotiation is really going to come down sometimes to what the seller is able to do or willing to do, but it's also going to be the market. Sometimes, like post-COVID, we were in a pure seller's market, right? And so at that point, they're not likely to give a lot of concessions because they don't have to. But when it's a buyer's market, maybe they're more willing to negotiate.
Yeah, I remember hearing horror stories of veterans submitting offers on a home. Well, that home just went on the market 24 hours ago and it's already got 30 offers on it, right? Because the inventory wasn't there for the crazy low rates that COVID had offered to us, right? And so, seller's market's a whole different animal, right? But hopefully we're starting to move back into that buyer's heavy market. And at that point in time, you want to make sure that your agent is, again, fitting the needs that you're looking for your family, for the purchase. But more importantly, I think it's so important to understand, and you mentioned this, this may be the largest financial transaction that you make in your entire life. And you want to make sure that you're checking every single box, right? And so one of the things you're going to hear about the VA home loan is there's no home inspection that is required. But it is highly recommended still, right? Because you want to know if there has been flooding before, or if they had mold remediation at some point, or whatever it may be, termites, whatever it may be, right? You want to be aware of those situations. And the best part about having a strong buyer's agent is if your state is a seller disclosure state and there's ever been issues with the home in the past, your agent can actually kind of translate what that disclosure looks like, because I'm not going to know what mold on the tech work of an Eve was, right? But
That's
that
fair.
agent can probably give you that information, right? So just having someone that's knowledgeable, not only in real estate, the VA loan process, but also kind of just building in general, right?
Sure,
I think
and local laws,
yeah.
as you mentioned, every state might have that seller's disclosure statement. I know we had it in our previous state, but yeah, they're also going to understand the different jurisdictions, and also the things that might not be related to that, but the school districts and all the local areas, and you don't want to.
Easements and
Sure. Yeah. Or you don't want to be here because the train comes and the traffic and those little patterns and all that fun stuff.
here was one of the coolest parts about when we purchased our home in 2021. Our agent was completely aware of the situation that the seller was in. The seller had to get out of town pretty quickly. They had a couple offers that they had refused. And so our agent was pretty confident that if we came in at asking price and then asking for the seller to cover our closing costs, that they were going to accept it. Agent was right. Right. And in my mind, I'm like, I've been in the industry for 10, 11 years. This is never going to work. That's why I was not a real estate professional in that moment, and our agent was, right? I've done every piece and worked on every side of the VA loan that you can imagine. But the real estate agent is so important when finding the perfect deal, not just the perfect home, but the perfect package for you and your family.
Yeah, we had a similar situation when we bought our house. Our real estate agent came to us, and we had settled on the house. We love this, think it's going to meet our needs. And she said, here's what's going to happen. They're asking this. We're going to lowball more than we know that they're going to accept, but they're going to come meet us in the middle. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And it was a slower market at that time. It was more of a buyer's market, but it was the exact number that we were looking for. And she said, you could offer that number and just stay firm, but they're probably going to feel better if you come in with this number and they're going to come back with this. And we're like, okay, let's do it. And it ended up working. So definitely that was helpful on the negotiation side. So let's talk about that. Now we're doing some negotiation. How do we put together that offer? Again, it's going to be case specific. There might be times when it's a seller's market and concessions really aren't on the table, or it might be more of a buyer's market where they're willing to work with you a little bit more. What are some of the things that we're looking for when we're putting together this offer? And perhaps, again, sometimes there's misinformation about using the VA loan. How can the real estate agent help maybe smooth things over with the offer or with using the VA loan, those things?
Yeah. So I think it's super important to understand, first of all, that sellers become emotionally attached to their homes, right?
Sure.
And so that asking price is somewhere between what the listing agent told them that they should put the home on the market on and what they thought they should put the home on the market, or what they think the home is worth, right? And so your agent is going to help you put together a package that kind of meets both of those needs. So this is what the sellers want out of it. This is what the seller's agent said they should get out of it. This is what we're willing to offer. But more importantly, through that contract process, your agent's going to know all the nuances. We don't want to waive our appraisal contingency. We want to make sure that the appraisal is done so that we know what may be wrong with the property. And then that agent's going to know that gives us more chances to come back and renegotiate after the appraisal comes in, right? Or a home inspection contingency, same principle. We don't know that there's anything wrong with the home, but that home inspection is going to show us. And then now we have, depending on the state, 7 to 10 days maybe to renegotiate and get a lower cost, because now we're going to have to put $5,000 into the deck of this home, right? And so not only are they going to help you to situate the contract properly, legally, but also with the needs of you in mind, right? Yeah, we want to make sure that we're meeting the seller at some kind of point where they want to be, but at the same time, we don't want to get bamboozled. We want to make sure that we're getting a great deal as the buyer, and that's what that agent's going to do for you. Above and beyond that, they're also going to help you to get that earnest money secured. Negotiate your earnest money deposit for you. A lot of active duty military guys that I served with didn't have $2,000 to just come out of pocket to put earnest money down when looking for a new home, right? And so a great agent may be able to negotiate that earnest money down to $500, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that way you got some money to help hire movers, or pay your guys in pizza and soda to come help you pack the house up and move it across the country, whatever it may be, right? But just understand, the agent is so important in the sense of understanding the ins and outs of the contract, knowing what's best for you, formulating that contract on your behalf, and then hopefully also getting some of those seller concessions or closing costs paid through the negotiation as well.
Awesome. Well, that's super helpful. Now, we talked a little bit, I talked a little bit about how our real estate agent helped me find a lawyer, and they helped us find the home inspector, right? So they have that, boots on the ground network that they can help you with that. Now, let's say we've done this process, we've hired our agent, we've found the house that we like, we've negotiated, we're ready to take that to the closing table. We don't need to talk about the whole closing process right now, but can we talk at least from the real estate agent's standpoint, how they're going to help you with those details and kind of take it to the finish line?
Yeah, so your real estate agent is going to be kind of that last line of defense outside of your lender as you're rolling into the closing, to the title company to do your closing, right? And a lot of really good agents across the nation are going to show up to closing with you and sit down at the table. And that way, if you have any questions from the real estate perspective, they've got answers for you, right? Because that title agent, they're not there on your behalf. They're not there on the seller's behalf. They're kind of what Switzerland used to be, right? Just a mediator there to get documents signed and move forward. So having a good agent that shows up at closing that can help walk through any questions that you have in that moment is I think, pivotal to your success. And then on top of it, if you can couple an agent that has a great relationship with a VA specialized lender, they're going to be able to pick up the phone if they have a question they can't answer and get that lender on the phone immediately because of the relationship that's been built there. So there's so many layers to it that we get kind of scared about, but really it's a lot easier than it seems to be on paper, right?
Well, especially when you have that expert guiding you.
Absolutely.
So, I found it super helpful to have that agent. I can go on one of these websites and I can go find a house, and that house looks good, and I can call the seller's agent and go look at it myself and try to represent myself. But I don't know what I don't know.
That's right.
And I think paying that expert to guide you through that process, especially if it's the biggest purchase you're ever going to make, you're doing it every 5, 10, 20 years, not something that you do frequently enough that you can really have the confidence you're not going to miss anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And also, contract law in some states require that you have someone that is licensed or certified in that field to get that contract finalized, right? And so, I would love to go in and be able to negotiate on my own behalf if I'm, just a regular Joe looking to buy a home. But there's a good chance the seller's agent is going to negotiate with me or even talk to me because I'm not a licensed real estate professional. And of course, you've got those FSBO routes, but that's kind of scary, in my opinion, because you don't know what may be behind the walls or under the roof, right? And so just having a professional in the industry that's there on your behalf. And again, they're required by the pledge they take when they become a real estate agent to negotiate and be there for you on your behalf and your fiduciary best outlook moving forward.
So I've used real estate agents when buying a home. I wouldn't do it any other way because, like I said, I don't know what I don't know.
That's right.
Now let's talk a little bit, switch gears here, Jared. How does a real estate agent help you sell a house, right? So now we're talking, we've lived in this house for 5 years. Maybe the military is sending me to my next duty assignment. My kids have graduated. They've moved off. It's time to downsize. Could be a dozen reasons.
Yeah.
How is this real estate agent going to help me list my house, get the best price that I can for it? Can we talk about that from the real estate side? And perhaps we just start with, again, finding a real estate agent because things might have changed. The person who helped you buy a house might not be the right person to help you sell it.
Definitely.
But how about we start with that and kind of explore this
Yeah, and I would even take it one step further back. And the simplicity of it is I don't have, 3 or 4 hours every single day that I can take off work to open my door to show people a home, right? And so that's going to be the biggest thing. The first thing for me is that agent is going to be there to show your home for you, to unlock the door for you, right? To be that buffer between you and potentially 50 buyers or 50 real estate agents out there that want to come and view your property or throw an throw a contract at you or an offer at you, right? And so the agent facilitates so many things. To find a good agent, man, that's going to be you. It's all about you. And we, excuse me, I speak with general counsel of brokers across the nation on a regular basis, right? And some folks that have done hundreds and in some instances thousands of VA loans and helped thousands of veterans get into homes. And the first thing they say is, as a veteran, if you're selling your home, don't just settle on the first agent. You may come back to that first agent and believe, yes, this is the best fit for me, but go out there and interview a couple agents. I think the average seller will interview 3 to 4 agents before they choose a listing agent, right? Once you find that person or those 3 or 4 people, you want to make sure that they have a plan of action on how to market your home, right? Again, as a listing agent, you have this complexity of walking in and me being emotionally attached to my home and thinking, this thing's got to be worth $500,000, when in reality, the market value for my home may be $450,000, right? And so the agent, the listing agent, a strong listing agent will come in. They're going to listen to everything you have to say. They want to walk around the house with you. They want to hear how your youngest fell down the stairs right there and broke his arm and that memory that sticks with you, whatever, right? They want to hear those things. But what they're doing is they're kind of calculating what they believe the value of that home is in the moment, right? And so then you're going to sit down at your kitchen table. The agent should ask you, what do you feel like you should get out of this home, right? And while listening and understanding all of that attachment, you come back and say 500,000, right? And then the listing agent's going to think about what the market value is for that home. And a good listing agent, I think, will start that listing process somewhere in the middle. But they have to have a good ability to communicate and explain that, hey, man, I understand you love this home and you got a ton of memories here. The market right now is dictating that we're going to get this much out of the home. And I think we can meet somewhere in the middle and start the listing there. And if it hits, then, hey, we're selling your home. And if not, we can always come back and lower that number a little bit to attract some different buyers. But more importantly, they're just going to be there for you. That's the biggest thing for me, man. Is like, again, like it's kind of scary selling a home as well. And
Sure.
you want somebody in your corner, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've sold houses too, and we did interview several different real estate agents. So as we're walking through that process, let's say we've interviewed 2, 3, 4, 5 real estate agents. We've talked a bit about what we feel the house is worth. They're going to come to us and say, you know what, here's what the comps have been for a house this size in this neighborhood. The market is fast right now or slow right now. It's more of a buyers or sellers. And we'll talk about that listing price. We've already established that, and now we put it on the market and we start to get some attraction. And let's say we have an interested buyer. They're going to come to us with an offer. How is a real estate agent on our side going to help us get the best offer and go back and forth with the buyer's agent?
Yeah. So obviously they're going to offer it up to any buyer's agent or buyer that comes through to submit a contract offer. And so the agent should be sitting down with you and walking through each one of the nuances of that specific contract, right? And the agent's always looking for your best deal. And so a listing or an offer may come in that's at asking price, and you're like, okay, this is exactly what we want. But the listing agent's going to uncover that the buyer also wants you to pay closing costs, or they want you to give a certain amount of concessions to them, or they want you to leave your pool table downstairs, right? And are those things that you want as the seller? Like, do you want to take your pool table with you? Does the listing price, the price that you actually get for your home, is that more important than what money you're giving back to the buyer at closing, right? And so that listing agent is there to help vet out every one of those offers that come to you. And by this time, they have a really good idea of what your wants and your needs are. And that's probably when they're going to slide that best offer in front of you and be like, hey, this checks all the boxes for what we were looking for here, right? And so I think all of it goes back to a great relationship between yourself and your listing agent. And I don't know about you, but usually within the first minute or two of a conversation, I can pretty much pick up on somebody's character and if we're going to be able to get along or not, right? And so you'll feel it. I think that's the thing about working with military, right? We all have that gut feeling that was instilled in us from basic training on, right? So
yeah, for sure. No, so yeah, that gut feeling that you get if my wife is the best at this.
Yeah.
So I talk to her. I'm like, what did you think? If she's like, no, then we're hard pass.
No. Yeah.
So she's got it. I trust her when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've got that offer. We accept it. Maybe there's 3-4 offers on the table, and something about this offer here maybe doesn't have the concessions or whatever. It just feels right. How is this? Is our seller's agent going to take us to that next step? Do they walk to us with the close? Are we at closing? Do they handle this for us? What happens next?
I think I probably missed a pivotal piece in that last question that you asked. That you have the ability as a seller, right, to go back and renegotiate. To submit a counteroffer, right?
Sure.
And so you your buyer submits an offer, and it's not exactly where you want to be, but for some reason you just have a great feeling about this family, and you want them to be in this home, right? Your agent can your seller's agent can create a counteroffer for you and send that back over to the buyer's representation. And maybe it's that you don't want to pay all the seller concessions, but you are willing to leave that pool table, right? And so you just throw that counteroffer back over there, and once it's accepted and everybody's on the same page, then that process starts, right? One of the nuances or one of the myths about the VA loan you talked about earlier is it takes longer than other loan products. The only other loan product that takes longer than is cash, right? Outside of that, I mean, my loan personally, and of course, I'd been in the industry for a long time, so I understood what was needed, but we were clear to close in 21 days and moved in 23 days.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So it can be done quickly, but it's so important to have every person on your team comfortable and understanding and using your product in the VA loan, right? So that being said, agent's going to get you established with that contract. Then it's going to get back over to the lender. They're going to submit that contract to the buyer's lender immediately, and then the clock starts, right? Good lender is going to try to get that appraisal ordered for you as quickly as possible, and that's the great thing, in my opinion, about the VA loan, right, is it's a blind draw. The lender is sending that into the VA. The VA has VA-approved appraisers across the nation that they're going to work with, and it's going to be randomly issued to one of those appraisers, right? Appraiser's going to come out and do their inspection and start making their valuation report. But in the meantime, your lender's working to make sure that you're ready to get into underwriting and make sure that we're settled and set up for closing. Along the way, there's some things that are going to come up. The home may need a well test. There may need to be a pest inspection that's brought in. If you're trying to get into a manufactured home, there may be a structural engineer that has to come in and do a report for you, right? But a military specialized agent, or at least an agent that's super familiar with the VA loan product, is going to know all of those things. And they should be setting that table for you from day one. Hey, we're under contract now. This is what happens next, right? I'm an expectations guy. And if you set expectations with me, I'm going to meet your expectations. And a good, strong VA or VA specialized agent, they're going to meet your expectations and set their own as well, right? So I think that's the biggest part. Have a great relationship with that agent. They're going to walk you through that closing. And so once that lender gets you clear to close, we have everything in place, right? We're clear to close. Agent's going to help facilitate a closing time for you. The title company is going to accept you with open arms, right? Because they want to make sure that money gets changed and the hands are changed properly. And so you're going to go to closing that morning, wire the money over that you may need, whether that's because the seller concessions didn't cover all your closing costs, maybe, right? So you're going to wire that money over. You're going to show up at closing, and then you're going to sit in a room with your real estate agent and that title officer, and you're going to go through and you're going to sign those papers. And then at the end, that's the best part. Open your hands. Somebody's going to put the key to your new house in your hand, right?
That's a great feeling.
Yeah, it is.
No doubt. Okay, so it sounds like whether you're buying or you're selling, the real estate agent is going to be your guide, your senior enlisted leader. They're going to take you
Yep.
from start to finish. They know the process, and they're just going to help you every step of the way.
Every step.
Every step of the way. So on the buying side, I absolutely want a real estate agent that's familiar with the VA loan because they're going to be my guide and they're going to help me through that process.
Yep.
Now, as a seller, I have a VA loan on my home. When I sell, do I need to have a seller's agent who knows the VA loan? Is that as important?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what your goals are when you're selling your home, right? One of the things that we're seeing now post-COVID is those rates were so low on the homes that were purchased then.
Yeah.
And so the VA has this program called the VA Assumption Program, right? And basically what that is another veteran or service member can come in and literally assume your VA loan at your rates, and then their entitlement takes over your entitlement, and you get a restoration of entitlement, and now you can use your VA loan again to go out and purchase, right? The really cool thing about the VA assumption is that you can actually allow a civilian to assume the home as well, right, or to assume the loan. That process is actually pretty smooth if you have a lender or servicer that truly understands that assumption process. You can still get an assumption done in 30 to 35 days, right?
Okay.
There's some other nuances that I'll let the lending side go into specifics about when it comes to the financial piece and qualification piece and stuff for assumptions. But the end of the day, it can really be a really, really good deal, especially if it's veteran to veteran or service member to service member. When it comes to the civilian side, your agent's going to know that if a civilian comes in, wants to assume your loan, that your entitlement is going to stick with that home until that loan is forgiven or paid off in full.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So that's the only kind of downside, if you will, to allowing a civilian to assume your loan is if you need to purchase again right away, you may not have enough money in that second tier entitlement to be able to go back and use the VA loan again, right?
Sure.
The other benefit to it is the buyer at this point is going to come in and pay you the difference in equity between how much that home is worth and how much you owe on the loan, right? So not only did you just hook the buyer up with a phenomenal interest rate because of whatever you closed in the early 2020s, but your buyer's coming in and giving you a big chunk of cash because of all that work that you put in to get that home paid off, right? And so VA assumption is an awesome process. Do understand, though, that agents are super important still in that process. Yeah. But what's even more important is that the servicer that currently holds the lien on that home is fluent in the VA assumption process as well.
Sounds good. So it sounds like when you're going to hire a real estate agent on the selling side, that it's good that they are familiar with the VA loan because we may be selling to another buyer. Now, if you're in a military community, you're probably all the real estate agents are going to be pretty well versed on it, I would think. But if you're in a non-military community, you may have to do a little more interviewing to find the right match for you then.
Yeah, and I think I'll add this as well, is that not every agent that's a buyer's agent is a listing agent. Okay. So sure. There are folks across the nation that have been in this profession for years on years that only will list homes or only will represent buyers. I hear a lot of common splits of I'm 70% buyer heavy and 30% listing heavy. So I'll list your home, but that's not necessarily my forte. But when you're ready to purchase again, I definitely got you on that, right? And so important to understand that. It's probably one of the questions that I would throw in there when
back at the beginning when we're doing our initial
interviewing the agent, right?
That's great. Well, Jared, thanks so much for sharing all this information. So it sounds like you have a wealth of knowledge. We really appreciate you bringing this to our audience. If you are using a VA loan, please do your due diligence. Hire a real estate agent that's going to work in your best interest, who understands and knows the VA loan process and can help guide you through it. This is something you don't want to miss out on because they're really going to be your advisor. They're going to help you through this process every step of the way. So, Jared, thanks so much for coming, and thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.